Here's the best way to explain what a trust is to other people. This is estate planning lawyer Michael Pevney, and I create estate plans for families in California. And for most of my clients, this kind of central main estate planning document that we create is a trust, a revocable living trust. And what that is it is a legal entity that I create along with my clients. We do that together, and it makes sure that our property is passed along to the people that we want after we pass away. It avoids probate, which is a very costly and very time-consuming process. The average person that I work with is avoiding about $50,000 to $100,000 or so in probate costs by setting up a living trust, and it can easily take about 1.5 to 2 years. But there are some challenges sometimes in somebody that's not legally trained explaining what a trust is and who the various people involved with a trust are. So I'm going to use the example of a revocable living trust, which is typically the type of trust that I create for most of my clients. And a trust can, in many ways, be similar to or compared to a bucket, okay? And so there's 3 people that are associated with the trust. There's the grantor, and that's the person that sets up the trust. And the trust itself is the bucket, okay? And the trustee is the person that's in control of the trust. And while the grantor, the person creating the trust, is alive, they are the trustee. And then, of course, there's the beneficiaries, and those are the people that, of course, we want to benefit from the trust. But a trust has no power. It is completely impotent unless we put something in the trust. So that trust has to be funded. So we can put different things in the trust. Sometimes we'll put a checking account or a bank account in the trust. And then we can put financial instruments and, of course, household items. That's a computer. We can put our cars in the trust and all sorts of other things. And then sometimes when we pass away, we can make the trust the beneficiary of our life insurance policy, right? So this is my actual life insurance policy, okay? So all this stuff goes in the bucket, and then together we write the rule book, because the trust is going to outlive us in many cases, and especially if we have little kids or we want things distributed in a responsible way, the trust is going to outlive us. So remember, the grantor is the person that puts the property inside of the trust. Now, the trustee is the person that controls the trust, that has power over the trust. And when we have a revocable trust, revocable meaning you can take it back, you can change it at any time you want, the grantor, the people that set up the trust, are the initial trustees, okay? So the bucket is the trust. We fill the bucket by funding the trust, and the trustee is the person that holds the bucket. So while you are alive, while the grantor is alive, they are hanging on to that bucket. But when we pass away, we have what's called a successor trustee in place. It's a little bit similar to the executor of a will. They're kind of in charge of distributing stuff. So what happens is when we pass away, we give the bucket to the next trustee, okay? So the trust still exists, the bucket still exists, except somebody else is holding on to it, and that's the successor trustee. And it's their responsibility, it's their duty, it's their obligation to distribute, hand out, and give out the property that you have put in that trust, either while you're alive or that was the beneficiary when you passed away, to other people. But the next trustee doesn't get to do whatever they want with it, because once you pass away, the trust becomes irrevocable, meaning the trust really can't change, and we can no longer change the rule book. Things can only come out of the trust according to the way we wrote the trust. So for people that have little kids, maybe we want things distributed to them only at certain ages or at educational milestones. So I often use this bucket analogy in order to explain what a trust is, and that the trustee is the person that holds on to the bucket. So when we create the trust, the initial grantor holds the bucket, and then we hand off the bucket to the next person in line once we've passed away. You know, another way to compare it to something is a car. I'm sorry for this video, I do not have a toy car, but we load up the car, right? We load up the car with all of our stuff and all of our property, and the trustee, the person in control of the car, they're at the wheel. And maybe in the back seat of that car, we have our successor trustee. And then when we pass away, we get out of the car, and then the next successor trustee gets in the driver's seat. And now they're in the car, but they've got to follow the map. They've got to follow the road map that we initially set up with that initial driver. So a trust can be compared to a bucket or a car. And the goal of it is to make sure that things pass along smoothly and responsibly to the people that we leave behind. And very importantly, we want it to avoid probate. We want it to avoid that government-controlled asset distribution program, which typically saves my clients somewhere in the realm of $50,000 to $100,000 on average. If you have any questions about this or anything else related to estate plan, go ahead and put it in the comments. Whatever format you're watching this on, you can subscribe to this channel. And if you'd like to set up a time to meet with me for free and you live in California, you can visit me at ocestateplanlawyer.com. Thank you for your time and thank you for your attention.